What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Something's weird here. We got three different boxes going on. This is not normal. What is happening? Today is season 6, episode 9, and we got Chris and Ethan from Grunge Bible. Dudes, I am so excited to talk to you guys. Thanks for making the time tonight.
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, Mark, thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here.
This is gonna be a geeky show, ladies and gentlemen. So fear not, plenty of geeky guitar future stuff will be happening on this channel, but today is devoted to the love of our lives, the music of the 90s, in particular, stuff that came from the Pacific Northwest and elsewhere. We can talk about elsewhere too.
Yeah, we can get
Um,
into that.
yeah, but you guys, I'm so curious. So I'm older than you. I'm an old man. I got some gray in my beard I saw today, which was a disturbing thing to see.
It's a
I saw
But
that.
harrowing
I noticed
discovery.
that too when I got on. I was like, "Oh, he's a little gray. He must know what he's talking about."
Yeah.
I wish. I'm just so curious. Like, you guys love this music. How did you guys each come across this stuff? Like, where were you? What was the moment that you heard this music, and why did it hit you so hard?
Yeah, Ethan, I'll hop in right here.
Yeah,
I'm
say
fired up
you're
and
ready. You're ready to
ready to
go. Go
go with
ahead.
this story. So, I am not old enough to have experienced any of the genre, the golden age of it firsthand. I was born in 1996, so my life doesn't even overlap with Kurt Cobain's. So it's funny, like through the page, people are like, you weren't even alive for it. But I mean, this is the fact that we have this page and we're so passionate about this and we're able to have these conversations with someone like you, Mark. It's a testament, I think, to how powerful the music is, and we all have our own stories. And mine, it's kind of interesting, and it was kind of like an accident almost. Like I didn't have an older brother or an older cousin or a parent that was super obsessed with grunge. My mom liked music, but she was more into like soul and Motown music. So like that's what we had going on in the house. And I think it was just a function of growing up and listening to like your standard FM rock radio, and you start to hear the Jeremys and the Roosters of the world. And I do remember hearing Alive when I was a kid, off of 10, and being particularly struck by that. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then you hear Black Hole Sun, but I have this very vivid memory back when I think I had first gotten like my first iPod Nano or something. And you go onto the iTunes store. This is after I had crashed my family's computer with LimeWire and was, from that point forward banned from LimeWire. So I had to pay for the music. Somehow I found Pretty Noose by Soundgarden, and I had found Slaves and Bulldozers as well, and also Dissident by Pearl Jam. I couldn't tell you why or how. It was almost an accident, but like you just hear these sounds that weren't around in music that was coming out in the mid to late 2000s. And it wasn't on top 40 radio, it wasn't what my friends were listening to, and it was just kind of one of those things that it scratched an itch that I didn't even know that I had. So that kind of got me going throughout middle school and high school. And then in college, when Ethan and I met, we really bonded over music. A lot of it was rock from the 60s and 70s, and then I think we both kind of discovered and developed this never-ending passion for grunge together, and we kind of walked that path together, and it's cool that it's led us to where we are now.
That's dope.
Yeah, for me, my dad was a big classic rock fan. U2's his favorite band, but he definitely loves like Boston and Chicago and all this. So I had a good classic rock background growing up, and we loved listening to the radio. It was always song would come on. My dad would be like, "What song is this?" And I'd have to, say something, be like, "Nope, it's this." You know what I mean? So we always played the guessing game and stuff. But I played music growing up. I was in a band all through high school, and so we played covers and we'd play music. And our producer Drew, he was my guitarist, and we would play. And his dad really liked like the 90s scene. And my dad's not super keen on it. Like he doesn't love it. But we would always jam at the house, and my neighbor was our singer as well. We all lived within like 2 miles. And so we'd play a lot, and everybody would just kind of bring stuff in. And we just, it was a garage rock band. Well, it was a barn. We played in a barn, but we started playing music, and I feel like we got into that. And when I would take drum lessons from, I had, a bunch of different teachers over the years, and they would always kind of kind of go towards teaching 90s rock. I remember the first song I learned was Crazy Train, but like we kind of go through like the different drummers and then like, I don't know, I kind of learned like that style. And so I think we just kind of found it in the garage. Like we're hearing all these different sounds. And then when I got to Pittsburgh and I met Chris, like I had this really large spectrum of rock music, not only the grunge scene, but classic. And I had like, I don't want to say surface level, but I knew all the hits and I knew the important stuff. And I was, educated, but then like Chris said, we connected over music, and he's the lyrical side of it. Like he really can he hears the song one time and can remember the lyrics. And I'm like kind of the opposite. Like I'll get the songs wrong on the albums that we're going to talk about today that I love. And but I'm a musical guy, so I hear the drums and the guitar. So we both have this like, we both had the brains that came together really well, and we were able to have these conversations that would last all night. And all of a sudden we found out together, who Mad Season was, who Temple of the Dog was, what the stories, how they were connected. And all of a sudden we were just like thrown into it. When I was, 19 years old and he was 17 and we were 20, 21. So like, we were just like at that perfect ripe age and just kind of discovering it. So I don't think it was one like moment for me that I like decided that I was going to be like commit my life, but it was just kind of like, it was building up a whole music pyramid. And then I was like, hold on. I was like, this actually is like really like a really cool scene in the 90s and the Seattle, and it was so connected. It was just like mind blowing. So that's kind of the main thing. I just, been around music for a long time. And then all of a sudden me and Chris kind of like had these conversations that just really got you thinking and stuff. And I was like, all right, well, these guys are pretty great. So, and then you hear all the, there's just so many stories in this music world that we live in too. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And something else that I kind of want to add to that. And Mark, before we hopped on, we were kind of talking about this and your path and like hearing Nevermind for the first time when you're a teenager. And I don't think it's an accident that this music had such a big impact on Ethan and I, because, we kind of discovered it for ourselves when we were, teenagers, maybe 19, 20. And there's just that phenomenon that I think everything feels like it matters so much when you're that age. And those soundtracks that are behind those moments and those events that matter and you becoming who you want to be, like they just stick with you. And I think we felt that as it was happening to us. And, it just kind of continued on from there, and it's grown and grown and grown. And, you really love exploring all the different nooks and crannies that come with the genre and the individuals in it and their stories.
And
it's weird too. Oh, go ahead, Ethan.
I'll just say, and one last thing, like on in the same breath, I feel like no one really like sat me down and explained the whole thing, or like, and it was like a self-discovery. So just like when it came out, maybe for you and like actual teenagers during the time, it was kind of like, they were releasing music to us at that age anyway. Like, even though I wasn't alive for it, I may as well. It's not like I was going to meet Kurt Cobain if I was alive during that time anyway. So it seemed really similar, except they weren't touring. But it kind of like, I felt like I was also, I didn't know anything enough that I was like, I discovered it on my own. And that's when you fall in love with stuff for real. When someone doesn't just tell you to do it, you just like, you find it yourself.
Dude, 100%. It's crazy too to think about at the time. I mean, it was a gigantic sea change from hair metal to this.
Oh yeah.
And it was palpable as a young kid. I mean, I don't know how old I was, in the 6th grade or something when all this stuff was popping. So for me, very formative part of my life was growing up with this music. And I can remember coming home the last day of school, and we didn't have MTV in my house, but my neighbor did. So I can remember seeing like the Smells Like Teen Spirit video for the first time while it was popping, like before Nirvana just like completely exploded and took over the world. And just being like, I'm like, these people are speaking to me. There's something inside of me that is like, just wants to bust out, and like growing up in a small town in suburbia in Maryland, I didn't have this thing that was like just in front of me right here that was so tangible. And I was like, I can do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was so beautiful with my connection with this music, is feeling like I can get that good. I can do that. I can play guitar. I can get on a stage, whatever. And like that was what was so beautiful about my relationship with this music. Do you guys have now? Ethan said he played drums. Like Chris, do you play guitar a bit? I know you're saying you
So
play a little.
it would be a great mischaracterization to say that I play guitar. I have a guitar
He's about to downplay it.
that I know a few chords on and I can mess around with it. But it was the whole thing. Like I got into this music and I think I was 20 and I had my wisdom teeth out and I couldn't do anything for like a week or two. So I Amazoned like a $40 guitar and I was like, I'm gonna learn how to play this. So, you know, I mess around a little bit here and there, but it is one of those things like it's so vulnerable and so raw, this music, that it like you said, it just gets you to have that thought like I could play these songs maybe with a little bit of luck and a little bit of practice.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about music. And I had this conversation with somebody last episode about like the whole idea of going to a concert and seeing a band, and with if you're with your friend and they're like, "Oh, I'm just gonna throw my guitar away. I'll never be that good." That's the dumbest
Oh, it's
thing
stupid.
you
Yeah.
can say, man. Like this,
Oh, yeah.
like there's inspiration to be had there. There's something that you can swallow, you know. Well, I don't want to take up too much. We can go on forever about this stuff, but let's dive into the records because you guys take deep dives on this stuff all the time on the channel. By the way, everybody make sure follow the Grunge Bible on Instagram. Awesome content. Sometimes it's absolutely hilarious. Sometimes it's super nostalgic and like, where the hell did they pull this clip from? Like super old, like Louder Than Love clips and stuff. I don't know where you guys sourced
The
some of
almighty
these things.
vault.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, where do you get this stuff? It's like my brother in Christ, YouTube.
It's great.
You just gotta look.
Yeah, it's awesome. But
It's
you
all
guys
out
got
there.
we talked a little bit about like just coming with 5 records that really touched you. So let's just dive right in. I know you said the first one was Bad Motorfinger. So
Oh yeah.
hit me with what like that record means to you guys and why that's in part of the like of the 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get us rolling here. I know kind of this is kind of like an offshoot of my personal story with how I got into grunge. You hear Black Hole Sun, and you know you're like Soundgarden, like this guy, whoever's singing, like he's got a really good voice, and you know you play Super Unknown a little bit. You might go to Down on the Upside, but for me, through Slaves and Bulldozers, I discovered Bad Motorfinger, and it just sounded so loud and so heavy and so like perfectly sloppy, but also at the same time right on time and perfect. And it was one of those things. So Ethan and I, we were teammates. We competed in college track and field together. So you know the music just went so well with athletics, with lifting in the weight room, lifting heavy, and just kind of like tough physical environments. And for me, as Ethan alluded to, like being so in tune with some of these lyrics. I mean, the stuff that Chris was able to write throughout his career, but I think particularly with Bad Motorfinger, I was just completely thrown into a trance by the way the music sounded and what Chris was able to do with his voice. It's one of those things that you know you kind of struggle to understand that you know I'm of the same species as the person who's making those sounds. And it was the perfect storm, and it's one of those records that is so timeless. And you know you can listen to it for the 1,000th time and you still feel the same things that you feel or that you felt when you listen to it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this album, I went through definitely a phase of some pretty heavy music, and I really got down with the just the really heavy guitar. And I mean, I got into screamo and some like metal and whatnot. So this was a perfect album for me to really like get into Soundgarden. And I mean, just the first 4 tracks going right down are just a beautiful opening to an album so hard and heavy, and the whole thing just like every time they perform them live, like it was like our favorite thing to post for the longest time is like basically this album. And like we just like it was like a gold mine in a way, and like but because you could watch it over and over again, and it just really showed. I just feel like seeing those guys on stage performing this album was like what made Soundgarden one of my favorite bands ever, basically.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I would think you guys were both like steeped in Alice in Chains as like your main bag, but You know,
It's
and like we can get into the whole wood like trolling. That's hysterical. But like, you know, I would have
yeah.
thought, you know, I never would have thought that. That's cool, man.
Yeah, I would say, I don't want to speak for both of us. Chris has a huge Pearl Jam side to him, but we both love like Alice and Soundgarden and the heavy side of the genre like a ton. So those are probably the two bands that I kind of go to a lot. Nirvana, I mean Nirvana is special. It's its own house, or it's its own room in the house basically. That's how you look at that. But yeah, we're definitely Alice in Chains guys, but Soundgarden's hard. I mean,
Yeah, man.
Soundgarden, you know.
Did you get deep into Pantera?
Thank God I stayed away. No, I made sure to stay away from them. But I no, for some reason I didn't actually. Are you a
Yeah.
big Pantera guy?
No. I had a couple friends, dude. I mean, I was listening to like Pearl Jam and like the Spin Doctors because the reason I like the Spin Doctors was because they were like funky, and I didn't know what funk was at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? Like, that's speaking to me a little bit. Like, a lot of the music that I play with my band is super soulful and like funk and like, you know, blues and whatnot. So it was a natural progression. But no, Pantera, like I can remember listening to Cemetery Gates for the first time. My boss was like, you gotta listen to this.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. And I was like, oh wow, this is like, it's like through composed. There's some really hip musical ideas in that band's like catalog. But I just can't handle the like too much.
Yeah.
I can listen to it for a minute, but
yeah, I would kind of
For
like,
the
I feel
whole
like we
album.
all have those friends or people that we know that are like, they're Pantera fans in the same way that I think we all have friends who are Tool fans. And it's like, you cannot tell them that like Tool is not the greatest band and that, Maynard James Keenan is not the most incredible front man to ever breathe on this planet. They're just like, bands I think attract those types of fans and those relationships with their fans that it's like, it's kind of, it's not a punchline, but it is one of those things like, oh, like you're a Tool fan.
right. Which I get. I mean, Undertow
Oh
is
yeah,
a breathtakingly good at record. Like it really
totally.
is. But man, like Bad Motorfinger, first and foremost, Drawing Flies is one of my favorite tracks off of that record. And
Yeah.
Nice.
mostly because I think there's a Barry sax in there.
Yeah, I
Like,
think you're right. Yeah.
have you ever
Which is
listened to
not what
pay
you would
attention?
expect.
No, but like if you listen to that track and put some headphones on, there's a Barry sax blowing in that tune.
Mm-hmm.
And like how strange, like, and who was the cat that played on that? And how did
Right.
that happen?
Yeah. Who
Like,
had the idea for that?
yeah, I know. It had to be Chris. I mean, I've heard stories from people like 3 degrees of separation from people that know people in that band or know somebody in camp. And they're like, Chris was always he kept everything close to his chest.
Mhm.
So he probably was like, hey, what do you guys think about doing this? And I'm sure Matt was probably like, yeah, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that record, man, it's still to this day, it sounds fantastic. You know,
It
like you
really
said.
does. Yeah,
So
I will. I don't think I'll ever get over the way that "Searching with My Good Eye Closed"
Yeah,
sounds, and I
that's one of
think
my
some of the
favorite.
performances that they did of that song in '91 and in '92. So in '92, that I think Guns N' Roses was on tour in Europe, and they opened a lot of those shows. And there's one video of them performing "Searching with My Good Eye Closed" in France, somewhere in France in '92, and it's just the most captivating thing. And I mean, the way Kim plays the guitar and like Ben Shepherd's holding his bass at his ankles and Matt's pounding away. I mean, Matt Cameron is one of the most fantastic drummers ever. And I mean, obviously I think Chris was at the top of his game around that time. And it's one of those things that these songs, and I think the best bands, and it's no surprise that all of these bands that we're going to talk about, they took their songs to another level live, and they put this different type of life into their songs live. And it's like, the studio version had its own life and its own thing, but when they got out on stage and played these songs, I mean, it was a whole different ball game.
yeah. Well, let me ask you guys this question. So when Matt joined Pearl Jam, was that 98? I think so.
98, yeah, I think
Around
so,
there.
after
Yeah.
Irons left. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys feel like his tempos were super pushed, or did you not even care? Because in the beginning, when he joined that band, I was like, oh man, he's really pushing these tempos a little too fast. And I don't know if it's him or if it's
Mhm.
Eddie, But like for a while there, when he first started playing with him, I was like a little bummed out. I'm not a Dave Aberzies like. I mean, I made a fan shirt, and I
Oh,
put Matt
nice. And Matt's name is
That's
on
awesome.
there. So
and I put Matt on there. And Jack's probably one of my favorite drummers because I love the way that he attacked the snare. Like he has a
Totally.
fingerprint on that snare.
Mhm.
But what did you guys think? Did you notice that when he first joined?
Yeah, I
Well, that
think yeah, what were you gonna say, Ethan?
I was gonna say I feel like this is one of those things that I didn't. That was 98, so yeah, I was 4 years old
Right.
when the switch happened. So this is one of the details that I didn't get to experience or really catch on, and I just kind of go back and listen to, and I had to learn you just learn like which drummer is playing on this album. So I didn't get I didn't get a big switch. I'm trying to think of like if one of my favorite bands now would switch members to, and my favorite part about the era and this whole time period is people know the bassist, you know the name of the drummer, the rhythm guitar, like you know the full band, you know who Mike Watt is, or I don't know, you know who um I don't know, all
Everybody.
of them. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, like everybody. So nowadays, I feel like people, the front man, and they kind of like they feel the band behind them, and it's not as so when stuff like this happens, it's a big deal when they switch members of the band, and I do love that about that time. I love that the drummer has a voice, and the three drummers and whatnot that come through the band.
Yeah, I think with the Matt thing, once again, being even younger than Ethan was in '98, but going back and looking at a lot of the live performances, it does seem like some of their songs are faster. Like I think Even Flow has gotten quite a bit faster.
Yeah.
Even some of the songs that they cut, like Light Years is one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs. And that one nowadays, it's much faster live than it was in the studio, or even when they first took it out on the road in 2000, 2001. So I wonder where that decision comes from. But like you said, just as Jack had his own fingerprint on the band, I mean, you can even go back to 10. I mean, Dave Cruzen, I mean, his DNA is in that album, just as Dave's was in Versus. And you have Jack Irons in there and Matt Cameron on the last several Pearl Jam albums. So it's interesting to kind of take a look, and people always, and we can't post a clip from 1992 through 1994 without people commenting that Dave should have never been fired and he's the best drummer. But I
Yeah.
think they all serve their time and place. And
Yeah.
Dave was the best drummer for Pearl Jam in 1992 and 1993. But I mean, now, I mean, it's different, and everybody plays their part and everybody contributes in their own way, and that makes the band what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I couldn't be happier. It's funny too because when we went to see them in September, man, they had a whole measure of a train wreck, and I can't remember what tune it was. It might
Yeah.
have been, I don't know if it was Wash. I can't remember what they were playing, but it was like a whole measure that I was like, "Ugh,"
Oh no.
super cringy. I'm like, I've never heard this happen to them, and what
Yeah.
happened, like, kind of thing. But like Matt, like kept it together and like got everybody back on the track. I
Yeah.
mean, he's just like one of the smartest drummers
Mhm.
alive
Yeah.
right now, you know?
Yeah,
So
when we've seen them, we always walk away reminded just like how talented these guys are. And yeah, Matt is he's phenomenal every time that he sits behind the kit. And yeah, I think that seeing them live is like always one of those beautiful reminders. Like, wow, the Pearl Jam rocks. Like, we talk about how good these guys are live, but Pearl Jam, they're still killing it. Like,
mhm.
seriously ripping it all the time when they're on stage. So
Yeah.
we
One
got
of
to
the best
we got
live
to get back.
bands, period. All right, well, let's move on to your second in the pageant. Let's move on to Alice in Chains here with some dirt. And let's talk about the trolling of Wood because it's hysterical. But tell me
yeah.
why dirt first, and we can get into that.
All
Yeah.
right. Do you want to?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
I mean,
Ethan,
this
you
is
lead off.
another one. Yeah, this is another one where when you first get into it and you go through the tracks. I mean, it's a heavy album. It's beautiful. It's well written, and I just feel like I said, it's just Alice in Chains to me. I mean, we really enjoy Jar of Flies and whatnot, but this one probably just the first one that I listened to. And when Chris was asking us, like, I feel like we gotta do Dirt, he kind of thought the same exact thing. I don't know, it was just the first one that came to mind. That, I mean, how can you not? The list is incredible. Starting with Them Bones, I believe, right? Is that the first track?
Yep.
Yeah.
Track one.
It's probably
hell of a
like
track one.
yeah. I love starting off the album with something just, you know, as big and as dirty as the Bones, you know.
So
So
sludgy and like and
Mhm.
odd time signatures too. Like those
Yes,
guys, like you hadn't really heard stuff like that from them.
right.
That was killing, man. Oh, such a
Yeah,
great opening track.
and there's something about the Dirt album that I think they certainly explore more in the self-titled the Tripod album, but there's just something about their music that almost sounds a little sinister, like the way the vocal deliveries are, the harmonies that you can't speak about enough with Alice in Chains. But I mean, I think of a song like hearing Godsmack for the first time. I mean, Lane delivering that the verses, and it just sounds like dark and sinister, and obviously when Lane was writing lyrics and the experiences that Lane had had and the band as a whole, being in a band with Lane and being around a lot of people, I mean, a lot of these songs, they're talking about heavy, heavy things. So for me, it was kind of that thing, you hear Down in a Hole on the radio, you hear Wood on the radio, you even hear Them Bones on the radio, but then it brings you into a lot of these other songs like the Angry Chairs, even Sick Man or Junkhead, and it's such a complete album. But it's once again, I think it's a really, really great encapsulation of these guys at the top of their craft, and so well put together. And it doesn't obviously hurt that it has the song that we've posted the most probably ever on the page, and it's one of those things that like I think it got legs a lot quicker than or even we hadn't intended it to get legs on it. But there's actually a an unironic origin story to this whole Wood thing. So back this must have been like 5 or 6 years ago. We had the page, but Ethan and I just got into this habit. Like I think like we were both like waking up early to train for athletics or something, or Monday morning, and it's like we just had that thought of that that line into the flood again. Like here I go. And I
well,
definitely yeah.
we were working. It was the summer of when
That's
you
right.
were
That's what
working.
it was. You're right.
I was working a masonry job, and
I was working a construction job.
he
Yeah.
was working in construction, and we both would get up like at the crack of dawn. And the guy that I worked with, he's a really good friend, Andy Engelman, and he's an awesome mason, and he's a guitar player who Alice in Chains' favorite band. And I ran the music on the site, and we'd listen to it, and we just talk music all the time. Like he's played like shows with me, like he was like in my dad's youth group, and like he's just been a part of my life. But he would like come and fill in for us all the time, and we would. And I remember one day like I mean, we pass back lyrics and be like, hands are bruised from breaking rocks all day. And then Andy would talk about Into the Flood again. He's like, that's really like what it is. Like every morning, like these jobs that you have to use your hands and you work like it's like hard, long days. And every day feels the same sometimes when you like work. I don't know if you've worked ever a manual labor job, but that's how it feels sometimes. It's like every day it's just like Into the Flood again, like same old trip it was back then. Like I'm mixing concrete and so me and Chris started sending it back and forth, and we're just like, wow, it really is like this. Like it's like every day. And I remember like posting it one day, and then I was like, the next day was the same thing. I was like, all right, I'm gonna post it again, and then I was like, the next day it's like it feels like the same thing, so we're just gonna post it again. And all of a sudden, Chris is like, let me get a stab at it. And you're like, yeah, dude. So he posted. He's like, I kind of like that, and I was like, yeah. I was like, post it again. He's like, okay. So all of a sudden, we just started posting it, and like we didn't miss a day for a long time. Like it was a
Yeah,
long.
it used to be every day as opposed to just every Monday morning, which is interesting. And like part of me feels a little conflicted that like we've made it into like a running gag, because obviously the subject matter of the song is quite heavy, and Jerry Cantrell, writing it about Andrew Wood, and the ever present, you know presence of addiction that was occurring there. But it's also one of those things that I'm of the mind that I think with music and with lyrics, I mean, once an artist puts it out there, I think the audience or the listener can kind of take from it whatever they find value in. So we applied it at the time of you know the way that we did, with the manual labor that we were doing, and Into the Flood again, and I think a lot of people were certainly not the first people to have done that with that song in particular, or any song. So it's one of those things that that was kind of our take on it. And at this point, it's so much more of a thing than we can wrap our arms around. I think we're kind of contractually obligated to keep posting it. So
It's become synonymous with your channel,
yeah.
and with your
I
account.
like. I was gonna say I like hearing from outside voices because like we read the comments and whatnot. But so did as like a follower, did you catch on to it, or was it just like did you notice it, or how was it like? Oh wait, they're doing this every day, or is it really obvious? Or like what was the I don't know how did it transpire for you?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
I think, I just noticed you guys were doing it a lot, and I was trying to figure out if I was missing something through the lines.
Yeah.
I was like, am I just being an old fart and not catching on to something? But like this, this humanization of the connection for you guys is beautiful and like totally explains it now. I just thought it was funny because dude, I mess with people all the time. Like
Oh
not
yeah.
not
Oh yeah,
You
Instagram, but
have
like
to.
that's the
between
fun
me and
side
my
of it.
friends and stuff, dude. Like I'm constantly trolling my friends and we're constantly messing
Mhm.
with each other. So like I was trying so hard to figure out like what am I missing? Like and I just think it's funny. Because in between that stuff, you guys post all this amazing content of
Right.
all
Yeah,
these
it's not
clips
like
that I brightens my day. And I'm like not trying to blow smoke, but like I work a day job, and if I'm like in between stuff, I'll look at the account. If stuff pops up and there's some amazing Pearl Jam video that I haven't seen yet, which is rare, but you guys
Mhm.
tend to pull it and make it happen. I will watch the whole thing, and I love it, and it really does
That's
feel
awesome.
and get me back on my feet and back into the
Mhm.
flood, as it were.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's the cool thing,
yeah,
because that's the same way that we feel about it when we find these videos and we post them, when we interact in the comment section. But with the wood thing, I think my favorite thing about it was, so last year Alice in Chains, they toured with I think Bush and Breaking Benjamin, and they played it must have been like 30 dates or so in the United States. And every single night that they were on tour, we would get tagged in a video, or a video would be sent to us of somebody at that concert when they played Wood. And we had people reaching out to us that like, hey, like because of your page, like I bought a ticket to go see this. And I mean, that's what it's all about, is just, sharing in music and discovering stuff together and just developing connections with this music in a communal aspect. And I mean, that's my favorite thing. But it's so funny. It's like every single morning I wake up and be like, all right, like where were they? Like, were they in Reno last night? Like, all right, like who
Mhm.
was there?
and we
And
know
sure enough, yeah, you have like 4 or 5 videos from the same show from different people.
that's
and
awesome. Go ahead,
and
Ethan.
kind and I was gonna say the nice part about it. So like for Chris and I, when we started, waking up and it's like literally hard to get out of bed some days. Your body hurts. And there's some solace, sending a text over and getting the same response. Like you start the sentence, they finish it, and you're like, all right, he's going through the same thing.
We're in it
And I
together.
think that's what happened on the page. We started posting it, and people were like, we're all in this flood together. And all of a sudden, the community that we had, that's when it like started like all of a sudden. I mean, it's always been like really strong, but the community that we have as followers is really strong, and they're pretty supportive, and I feel like that really helped bring everybody together in this weird way, because it was like everybody's getting up, going to the work, or everybody's have their struggles, and you find solace in knowing that other people are dealing with the same stuff and kind of going through the same trip it was back then. So I think that's
Yeah,
like
man.
coolest things about it, and it makes a lot of sense to me when we talk about it.
Yeah, it's awesome,
Right
dude.
on.
I love it.
Yeah.
Nerdiest moment in 90s music history, however, on that record is the end of Down in a Hole. I laugh every time I hear that song end because it resolves on a major chord. And it's like it's brooding so hard,
Yeah.
and then it's da da, and I'm like, God damn it!
Yeah.
It
It's like
doesn't
we
bother me that much, but it does a
Mhm.
little bit, like
Yeah.
but it's kind of nice, but it's the nerdiest musical moment.
It's like probably one of those things that like from the first moment that you noticed it, you're like, I'm never not going to notice this.
Hmm.
It's like the Seinfeld episode where there's the red dot on the sweater, and it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's
Yeah,
just there, no matter
yep.
what. It's
It's
always gonna
so
be there.
it's like simple nerddom, really,
Yep,
but it's so great. All right, let's
absolutely.
keep rolling.
Yeah, let's
Um,
roll.
Purple, hit me.
Purple. Absolutely. So we
My
just
second album.
yeah, Kiss Me
My second album.
So this is just purely divine timing because our most recent podcast episode was all about the Purple albums. That was episode 102 of our podcast. But this is one. It's got probably my two all-time favorite Stone Temple Pilots songs. And Stone Temple Pilots, like, everybody else considers them to be grunge, and I'd be interested to get your opinion, Mark, on this. I mean, for me, I'm more of a strict interpreter of like what grunge is, and I don't know that I would consider STP. They just kind of feel like a rock band to me, but I mean, for the greater purpose, most people seem to consider them to be a part of the grunge scene, despite not hailing from the Pacific Northwest. But kind of before I get into this, what are your thoughts on that? I love to hear what people think, especially somebody who was, of age to consume this, these bands when they were around.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of them as part of the grunge scene. I
Yeah.
always thought of them as a very hip. I mean, I think Core was trying to be. I think the
Yeah.
commercialism of what was happening, the machine was trying to make them that.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you can see the trajectory of their career, and I hearken those guys more to like the hipness of Led Zeppelin than I do of grunge rock. There's some gorgeous music, especially like Tiny Music is one of my favorite records because of how that album sounds sonically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dean must have. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just talking to you in this little bit of time. You probably really enjoyed the music that these guys can write and how they kind of all go all over the place.
Oh my God, yeah. And like I love the fact that they like, dude, I talk about this sometimes, but do you guys do this with your friends where if you're sitting around a campfire, you do like almost like the Wordle version of music, but you like play the first 20 seconds of a tune and they've got to guess what record it is and what song it is. You guys do that ever?
I love doing this. Yeah, I'm usually the best in the group whenever we do this. But it's
of course
fun.
you are.
Been doing this with my dad since I was young. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do it with my daughter now too, man.
That's awesome.
But we like press play. Ain't nobody ever gonna guess that that's STP if they're not super hip, because that thing that sounds like that could be on an old Weather Report record or some old jazz like fusion record, or a funk record. And I love that, but I love the fact that Dean cranks up a little 10-inch speaker like he plays through like an old Supro, like kind of like what Jimmy Page would have done. And like room mic it and get this amazing guitar tone. But yeah, anyway, I could go on forever. But yeah, I never really saw them in that scene as much. I kind of felt like they were like the LA rock scene.
Yeah. And like the post-mortem that I did on it in my own head, like I feel the same exact way. I think everybody was trying, and they wanted Stone Temple Pilots to be who they were on Core, and that's why I love Purple so much. It's because they broke the mold that was set there for them. And I mean, the stuff that they did on this album, how diverse it is sonically, and a lot of the melodies and just the way that the album is constructed is so unlike what a lot of what was coming out of the Pacific Northwest. And like you said, a lot of like the Led Zeppelin-y vein, and I mean just really, really diverse influences. And there's a little bit of jazz I think you can kind of feel throughout their music sometimes. And I'm always fascinated. They did such a good job seemingly throughout their careers with just opposing loud parts of the song with very, very quiet parts of the song. And it was like, the verses are really, really soft and subdued, and they open it up in the chorus, then they bring you right back. And I mean, the bridges that they were able to do were just magnificent. But this one for me, I found it through Big Empty. That was my gateway into this one. I think I had picked up their greatest hits, the Thank You CD at some point, for my first car. And I believe that one probably had Vaseline Interstate Love Song on there, but it had Big Empty, and that was the one that I honed in on. And then you start to listen front to back, and I think this one kind of tells a story of who the band was at that time and the different influences that they had. And you hear it throughout the record, and it's like they open it up for a couple of songs and they bring it back down. Still Remains is like this soaring song, and it's really, really big. It's like a not like, it's almost kind of like a power ballad type thing. And then you have other songs like Army Ants or the last song Kitchenware and Candy Bars, which is kind of like, I would say it's like Purple's version of Atlanta that they did at the end of the decade on number 4. And it's just, this is the album that anytime anybody's like, oh, they were just Pearl Jam wannabes, like you play Purple and you're like, how, like, do you have ears? Like you gotta listen to this stuff, because it's not at all what somebody told you it was.
Do you think it's because STP was melodic?
That people said it sounded like PJ?
Pearl Jam? Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Because if you think about it, what I loved about Pearl Jam more than all the other bands was the level of sophistication of the melodies.
Right.
Not to say that Kurt wasn't super sophisticated with what he was doing, because he was.
Yeah.
He redefined a generation. But there's something about Scott's melodies and like, you know, and I don't think he wrote all of those. I think that Dean and his brother had a lot.
Yeah,
Probably
Dean
a lot
and
to do with
they're
it.
powerhouses. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Ethan.
I think.
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Ethan.
Me? What?
Yeah.
Purple.
Purple. Yeah. I think that the lyrics really stand out to a lot of these songs in a way that, I don't know. Scott has a special. Every time I come back and listen to the Stone Temple Pilots, I kind of like ask myself, like, did he have like was he the best lyricist out of, like, it's crazy to think because there's a lot of them, but I feel like sometimes I can get really caught up in what he's writing and how real he was. We did, like, we talked about Core on a review and just how I feel like it was very complete album. Like everything was kind of together. And this one, I get a lot of the same things, same feelings. And I don't know. Pretty Penny is like a really special song to me. I really enjoy that one. It's so different. It's so like stripped down. They have a great like story behind it where, Scott's just like really raw about it. And it's kind of like about just talking kind of towards himself. And I don't know. It's just I mean, I could probably pick, the other albums are also extremely good, but this is kind of the one that we landed on. I'm not sure if it's I don't know. It's probably between this and Core if it's my favorite, but Big Empty, I'm kind of in the same vein as Chris. That song is at the top for me, for them. So that being on this album is really important. And Vaseline is probably should be opened up, be the opener for it should be the opener for this album instead of Meat Plow. But I think, but I love that. I love
Core, yeah.
Yeah, I love them to open with Vaseline for all their concerts. That's what it should be. So.
Right.
Yeah,
and
I would definitely say the melodies that they wrote. I would totally agree with what you were
very
saying.
catchy.
Like it was just different than I think. I mean, Pearl Jam, they were different, as you said, like from Nirvana, and the way that they approached it was different from Alice and Soundgarden, and the Trees, and I mean any other band. And I think the Stone Temple Pilots had those intricacies as well that you did find in Pearl Jam's writing for sure.
It's super sophisticated.
Yeah, do you just because like sometimes I feel like the grunge scene, they really try to, like, I don't know, put people or bands with like the prominent frontman in the vein. Like I feel like that's why Shannon Hoon kind of can be put into, because also he passed away, and so Scott as well, and like the way that his talent as well. Like, do you think that's kind of why people always put them with the big four, because of Scott? Like just
it's kind of like
the only reason. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you think it's like the Mount Rushmore of grunge in a way, kind of thing. Like it's like
people always, exactly,
losing Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin. Pete Townsend, or not Pete Townsend, like Bonham and like all those cats, and Keith Moon, like that all died young. It's like, sadly, it's part of the struggle of dealing with addiction and having a lot of money and all that stuff.
Right.
I don't know, man. I took, when Shannon died, I took that real hard.
Yeah. That was 96, I think. And yeah, he was on a tour bus, but I mean, he was so incredible. But I think a lot of it too, like people, especially now with the, with 20, 30 years having gone by since this era, it feels like people like have certain criteria. It's like, was it music that was made in the 90s that could have been classified as rock or alternative? And did one of the band members have a substance abuse issue, and then they kind of like all categorize it
Right.
together under and they term it as grunge, but I mean like Blind Melon, not grunge. Stone Temple Pilots, in my opinion, not grunge. I mean, and I appreciate them and I love those bands, but it's hard, like, you know, when you're categorizing these things, and you know, if you include one of these bands because of one of the, you know, individuals personal things going on or their influences, and you know, it expands pretty quickly.
Totally. Totally. And
Yeah.
I will say this about Purple, Ethan. Purple has probably my most favorite drum fill of all recorded music history time.
Ooh,
No way.
let me guess. Let me see if I can figure out which one.
Yeah.
Eric
Ah,
Kretz. And that's
I don't
one of the,
know.
yeah, what is it, Mark?
Is it Interstate? Is it in there?
Nope.
No. What do we got? What do we got? Silver Gun?
Army Ants.
Army Ants? Nice.
Baka, baka, baka,
Hey,
boom, right into
Oh
that
yeah.
solo. That
dude,
is one of the smoothest, tightest fills that just sets up the home run of that guitar solo. And the guitar solo
Mhm.
that comes after that is just sublime.
Killer.
well, I said
Oh,
when we were talking about it, the end of that song is so jammy. Like
yeah.
they play like they are just going, they're hammering away. That is a really great, like, the whole song is really good, but the second half of that song is like they really go.
It's crushing.
Oh
Crushing.
yeah.
All right, we're running out of time. Let's move on to verses. So we're in
And we
one of
didn't
my
even talk
favorite
about my
camps.
second album, the hidden track.
Oh, okay. What's what?
Fantastic.
After
What do you have to say?
kitchenware and candy bars, Mr. Richard Peterson comes on and they have like he just like sings over some jazzy, like,
Yeah.
you know, the hidden track, and me and Chris made a big deal on it with the
I
on
just
the
I just
pod.
love the
An
fact that, you know, these
album.
bands were
Yes.
including things like that, you know, and
Yeah,
it's like
it's so fun.
this running gag. It's, you know, it's poking fun. I'm all for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Any band that
100%.
doesn't take themselves that seriously,
Oh yeah.
but writes killer tunes and like can
Yep.
do that. That's what I love about Mo. We were talking about jam bands before. Like
Yeah.
I love that about Mo is they do not take themselves seriously. But yeah, that's whatever happened to the Lost Secret track. Why are people not
I
doing that
know.
anymore?
Right. It's a
know.
lost art.
I feel like they don't want to like
Losers.
waste it. Yeah, they don't want to like
Yeah.
put it out there and not have like the, you know, the impressions from it. They want to, whatever.
Mhm.
I'm doing it next record. I'm doing it. I don't
Yeah.
give a shit.
Hell
Same.
yeah. I can't wait.
I'm
Same.
doing it. All right,
That's
let's
very
go on to verses here, and you guys tell me your spiel on that.
Yeah, let's get into the Versus album. So I think for me the gateway was Dissident, and hearing that for the first time.
Mhm.
At first it was that opening guitar lick, but then like as you listen to it more, and obviously you know, you listen and you hear Eddie's vocals, and I think, you know, the Versus album is so good. Eddie was doing so well, but I just like I still can't get over how good of a songwriter Stone Gossard was and is. So underrated. I mean, he was for a long time until, you know, obviously until Eddie started getting more involved in the songwriting. I mean, Stone Gossard, incredible. I mean, going back to the early days with Mother Love Bone and everything, and the 10 album as well. But I mean, the way that he could write, but also the way that he played rhythm guitar, and without having the technical mind for guitar, or, you know, understanding a lot of the ins and outs of it. I mean, he is just so unique, and just the way that he played rhythm guitar and the way that he included all of these different elements really made it sound so full. And I think it, you know, it gives Mike McCready the room and the ability to do what he does best. And I just think like the synergy that they found on this album was so good. I also love the lyrical subject matter. You know, Eddie Vedder spending a lot of this record kind of looking inward and looking back out now that he's this public figure. And I love, you know, the fact that on this album Eddie's using his music and the music of the band as a tool for social commentary, oftentimes in this satirical way that I think he's revisited a lot over the years. And, you know, for me, I love music that has a message like that. And this is going back to what I said. I mean, Dave was the perfect drummer for this one. I mean, rear view mirror, you hear him throwing the sticks at the end of that final take that they got. I mean, it's just it's a perfect encapsulation, I think, of that energy that Pearl Jam had in '93, and that kind of, you know, 5 against 1 mentality still persisting.
Yeah, the Dissident live video from I think it was Vegas or
Yeah,
something. Was it Vegas?
'93 versus tour in
93
Vegas.
in
Yeah, we
Vegas.
love that one.
We love that one, and because obviously you have the incredible guitar coming in, and then like Dave just hammering back there, and it's just amazing how hard he is hitting these drums, and but it's so rhythmic and in time, and it's just beautiful. And it's just a powerhouse of a performance, and yeah, Rear View Mirror, we love that one's like obviously our first Pearl Jam show that we went to. Um, we went up and found some seats, and all of a sudden like this guy came in and stood next to us. I don't know if he had a ticket there or not, or if he just kind of moved into an open seat. And then like halfway through the show, or like halfway through like the second or third song, I think he popped off his shirt, or maybe he wasn't wearing a shirt when he got there.
I don't think he was wearing a shirt. Yeah.
But he had Rear View Mirror tattooed like straight across his collarbone, and we were just blown away. It was just like, it was fresh. It was like he just got it and came to the show, and he
Yeah,
was like
it was
talking
sick.
a little bit, and then like halfway through, like he left and we never saw him again. But it was amazing. He kind of disappeared, and the rear view mirror. That's that man. That's how we'll
man.
always know. A Leash. I love Leash too. That's like one of my
Yeah.
favorite songs. Drop the leash.
Talk about hip too, man. Like if you listen to the beginning of that track, like Jeff is playing like straight
Oh my God, yeah.
triplet quarter note like groove, and then it turns into something else. You're like, what is gonna happen here? Like dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. And then like that just just kicks in, and you're just like 0 to 60 in 1 second, man.
That's
It's just,
right.
oh.
A lot of these songs are really, I mean, this is like peak. I mean, it's really good musicianship. I mean, they always are, but really good musicianship the whole way. But then I do love like Glorified G. I mean, there's Elderly Woman, which we love, and like, but yeah, Glorified G is a beautiful song, fun to sing along, good hook and shit. But
and
dude, and
Mark,
Indifference. Let's not forget about Indifference, even though it's a slow jam. I mean, it's like
so good.
Beautiful moment.
Final
And
track,
like to see that live too, and like the lights are down, and it's just it's so good.
That's one that one's on my list of Pearl Jam songs that I'd love to see live.
I don't think we saw that.
Yeah, that would be really, really incredible. But I always think of Leash and in the first song Go kind of in the same realm, because I mean you have that bass part at the beginning. You don't know what's going to happen. And I always try to envision myself like if I had picked this cassette or CD up in 1993 and you put it in, and for the first time you're hearing this album, and I always just love thinking of like what people's impressions were of these songs the first time through. It's like you love 10 and you listen to a song like Go, and Animal just gets right to it, and a lot of these songs get right to it, and it's just it's really cool. I think a lot of these songs are hard for them to pull off live now, just because I think a lot of the subject matter of the songs, like I think Leash, Drop the Leash, We Are Young, I think it sounds different when you're 57, 58. I think it's the same thing with the Who and Baba O'Reilly, but it's just
Wasteland.
I mean it's just it's cool. And I mean this album is, once again, I love second albums because it's like you have this thing out there in the world that everybody knows you for, and they expect you to do that again or do something very similar, and then you have the experience and the latitude to explore different areas, and they did that, I think, on this album.
Oh man,
how about we can't not talk about Rats though too. And I love the intro.
Great one.
Bringing, I would say, for some reason I feel like you love this one, Mark. You love.
I gotta show you something.
Yeah,
I want to see this.
There's got to be something.
Oh man, where is it? Hold on. I got it.
Doing some real time here on At Home with Mark.
Dude, I have a pedal that my buddy built me. Here it is. I found it.
Yep.
And so my buddy, it is a Rat. But my buddy has a company called OCE Pedals, and I'm just a huge fan of his work. And he made me this.
No way. I love that.
This just showed up in the mail one day. He's like, man, just to let you know, I sent you something. And he didn't tell me what it was. And I didn't have a Rat circuit yet. But he sent this to me. It's that Dave sticker that was on his bass drum. He found that and like worked it out. But yeah, this is how nerdy I get, my friends.
That's
legit. Good stuff right there.
I like that a lot.
But yeah, that record, that was like a rebirth, man. Like when Versus came out, because I mean, I loved 10. I mean, Deep is
Right.
still one of my favorite songs ever.
100%.
But when Versus came out, it sounded different. Like sonically, the way the record was made, how Brendan worked with
100%.
them, it just sounded like fresher, and I felt like it was like baptism by fire again, all over again.
Mhm.
And then it just continued. It just went into Vitology, and it felt the same way. And then it just kept going with like No Code, and like a lot of people didn't like No Code, and I was like, I
Right, because
loved
it
No
was so
Code,
different. Yeah.
but I loved it, and like there's like Merkin was coming out, and all that stuff was
Oh
happening,
yeah.
and it just
And
felt
that
like it
album
just
they did with Neil Young at that time, Mirror Ball, so
Mirrorball.
good.
Oh man,
So good. I mean,
it's
Neil Young, I
unstoppable.
mean, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. All right, we're running out of time. In Utero, let's go there.
In Utero, the final one. So we
Sorry.
would be remiss if we didn't include a Nirvana album. And this one's always been my favorite Nirvana album. I'm not exactly sure why. So out of all of the prominent bands from Seattle, Nirvana, I think, is the one that I'm most lukewarm on. And not to say that I don't like their music and really appreciate them. I think for me, because I wasn't alive at the time, it's hard for me to fully understand the cultural impact that Nirvana had and that Kurt Cobain had. I think that's just something that it's hard for me to tap into that because I wasn't there. But I mean, this one, once again, I think it's a response to the notion that everybody has of you, because Nevermind changed the world when it came out in 91. It was inescapable. Anywhere you turned, if there was music playing, you were going to hear something from Nevermind. And people go back and they listen to Bleach, but it doesn't capture the spirit in the same way, and there's not that anticipation because it was already out. And then when Nirvana comes up with their follow-up to Nevermind, I mean, they're being pulled in all these different directions as to what they want it to sound like, and like Geffen wants it to sound like one thing, and Kurt's like, no man, we don't want to do that. And they bring in Albini, and just I think that the way that it came out, and it's got some of my favorite songs. And for some, obviously with the hindsight of what had happened the following year in 94 when Kurt passed away, like there's just some mortality on this album that I feel in songs like All Apologies, that just kind of like always make me think of Kurt and his struggles. And Francis Farmer is another one. But this one I think is so cool because it was a conscious effort to not sound the same way as the thing that they made that made them rich and famous.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, Nirvana. We always jammed Nirvana. Like, I mean, everybody like as a drummer, like playing the intro to Teen Spirit and stuff was always fun and to be able to do. And we played Serve the Servants and whatnot. And so I feel like this album is just a fun. I don't know. It's really fun for me to listen to the band, like just three people, the three piece, and sometimes with Pat, and like I don't know. I find a lot of comfort hearing a three piece band like play so full, and like Scentless Apprentice. I love. I mean, there's a lot of really really good songs on this album. This is probably my favorite album as well by them. And yeah, ending with All Apologies, like you said, Chris. That song, since we talked about it, and you kind of gave your piece on it. Like I feel like that song has moved up the ranks for me a ton. Yeah, like you said, feeling the mortality of it all. But I love Serve the Servants. It's so groovy, and that's a really fun one to play too. That one's just kind of, I don't know. It's a great intro. It's just pretty, I don't know. It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
But yeah, this
really
is a great album.
Yeah, that record was so all over the place too.
It was,
like,
yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, and that's what I want to ask you, Mark, because you had told us like your friend had introduced you to Nevermind, and it's this crazy thing, and it changes the way that you think about music. So having known Nevermind, like what were your thoughts like when you had first listened to In Utero?
Honestly, I didn't really identify with it as much at the time when it came out, and I
Right.
think that's because I had moved on to some other elements of guitar.
Mhm.
Makes
Um,
sense.
Yeah, I think because my older brother was super into Fish and the Grateful Dead, and I was like, "Oh wow, this stuff is really complicated." Like compared to playing Alive or all the stuff that I've been playing before. I think I was at that breaking moment where I was like, "Okay, I got to challenge myself more now."
Right.
and at the risk of sounding cocky, I mean, I was in high school, so it's like I just really took to guitar quickly, and I think at that time I was like, this stuff is kind of not in my scope right now,
Right.
But I mean, I went through a heavy, like Incesticide was one of my favorite records to listen to for a long time
Yeah.
because I really kind of identified with the punk rock elements of what that, had to offer.
Absolutely.
But I mean, like, you cannot deny a heart-shaped box.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I played in a jazz fusion trio, and we did like an instrumental version where I played a lot of slide for the melodies and stuff.
That's really cool.
And we did that song. I think at the time, it's funny because we did that, and then like Westworld came out, and they did like that piano version of it, and I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I was like, that was my idea.
I knew I was onto something.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I love the record now, like listening back to it. But I think at the moment when it came out, it didn't turn me on as much,
Right.
But what other records came out that year?
93. Yeah. Because like the big years, obviously, are, I think 91 and 94, everybody thinks of. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, Versus had come out. We were still a year away from Jar of Flies. And The Trees had come out in 92. I'm actually not entirely sure.
Yeah, I wonder what I was listening to. I was in 8th grade actually that year. So I don't know what the hell was I thinking trying to play Fish.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, really getting into the outer expanses there. That's
I was working on those arpeggios, son.
Trying to play the sweet sounds of Trey Anastasia. Sweet guitar sounds.
Dude, yeah. I mean that record is you know what, I should go back and listen to it more. I actually just dumped I went back into my booklets of CDs and
no way.
Dumped that onto my laptop and put some of that on my phone so I could listen to it because I'm trying to get my kid for a while. My wife had her brainwashed listening to Katy Perry and all this stuff.
Oof, you gotta bring her back.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not trying to throw shade.
Yeah.
But since then, like I just taught my kid how to play Hey Jude on piano, and like so she's like really getting into the Beatles, and she loves Dawes, and like so I'm getting her into all this music, but she's not. Anytime Pearl Jam comes on, she's like, Dad. Like, because I'll
understand the singer.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put like some vinyl, like a Pearl Jam record on while I'm cooking dinner.
Right.
And she's like, dude, can't you put Dawes on, or can't you put the Beatles on, or whatever? I'm like, no, I cannot put that on. So it's just like I'm trying to expose her to this stuff, but I think Nirvana's a little bit too edgy for her right now.
Yeah, that's probably
not
one
ready
for later on down the line.
She's not ready yet. Let me ask you guys something really quick before we do the lightning round get down. I know we're over time, but I have to ask you this. There is a record that came out in 1996 that not many people know about. Now, this is not a grunge record, but there's a band called I Mother Earth. You know about this band?
Yes. I do.
They had a record.
They're from Canada, I believe.
They are from Canada. They put out a record in 1996 called Scenery and Fish.
Nice.
And I challenge you to see if you can find this record. If you can't find it, I will Dropbox it to you because it's really hard to find, but it is one of the greatest records of the 90s. And I will say that.
I would love to hear that. I know one song from I Mother Earth, but I couldn't tell you the name. It's not coming to my mind, but I'd posted them a couple of times before, and it was similar reaction. Like there were like a few people that commented, they're like, oh my God, yes. Like this band is incredible. But I'm not
one of those people was probably me.
Yeah, right. That was our first encounter. I would love to listen to this.
Yeah, what makes you bring it up?
So that record is, I could do a freaking dissertation on this record. That record has some of the best songs, I think, probably written in that decade. And I think that the musicianship of that band was just in the stratosphere. That band had like their first record was called Dig.
Right.
And there was a song called Not Quite Sonic. That might have been what you might be hip to or something.
Yeah, I just looked and it was So Gently We Go is the one that I know, and I posted a few times.
Okay. Yeah. So there is, I can't remember how many tracks are on that record, but like there's like long jams in the middle of like 5 or 6 songs. And I'm talking like it's not like a 16 bar solo. It's like a minute and a half of improvised music.
Stretching their legs a little bit.
Super stretching. And I would be so curious to know how they recorded that record together as a band. Because essentially they were like a kind of like a power trio, but they had a percussionist.
Okay.
Which was very different at the time. So drummer and percussionist, killing guitar player, this guy Jag. And I think the drummer and the guitar player were related brothers. And then you know, the lead singer, oh my god, why can't I remember his name right now? I'm gonna blank. But anyway, you got to listen to that record. It is so good. Talk about working out. Whenever I'm on like the Peloton or if I'm working out, like I put on that, or I'll put on Super Unknown.
Bad Motorfinger.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
cool.
dude,
I'm definitely going to be hitting you up for a Dropbox share of that.
Yeah. So it's not on.
I'm
It's not on the. It's not on Spotify and Apple Music. No, it's not on there.
Only Dig is on Spotify.
Why
can't find it? I don't know, man. I don't know.
I wonder if it wasn't released on the label that they'd released Dig. I don't know.
I don't know, but I had there's a pedal builder. His name's Josh Scott. He owns JHS pedals, and he's been on my show a couple of times. And we did like we went through the whole Pearl Jam discography. We did an episode where we talked about our favorite songs in each record.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, and then he just was on maybe last season or before where we picked all of our favorite records from the 90s. And I told him that one. He's like, I've never heard that. And I was like, you got to listen to it. And then he was like, dude, I can't find it anywhere. I was like, really? So I was like, here, I'll Dropbox it to you. So hit me up. I'll send it to you. But it's so good. I think you guys would really like it.
And this is like the type of thing this is the type of thing that excites me most, because it's like when you spend so much time around a certain era of music, like there's less and less unturned stones. So like any single time somebody can point me in a direction of something that I haven't heard, it's like really excited to go flip that stone over if I can find it.
Oh man, there's a song called One More Astronaut that is just like balls to the wall, just like crushing. Oh, it's so good. All right. Let's do the lightning round get down. You guys ready for this?
Lightning round get down. I'm ready.
I'm going to put on a metronome for some suspense.
Are you saying you're gonna play the beginning of songs with the guests or what?
We can do that another time. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask you guys. It's 10 questions. So, and we can pick like if you want to go first, Ethan, and then Chris, or the vice versa. So you guys not talking over each other. But I'm gonna ask you a question, then bam, just give me your answers.
Ethan, I'll let you go first.
Some of these might be a little bit weird because you weren't my age in the 90s. But I'm gonna see how much 90s pop culture you have in your brains.
Here we go.
All right, so usually my first question is Lennon or McCartney, but I'm not going to ask you guys that because this is a 90s.
McCartney.
Me too. But here's the first question. Singer. You got to choose one singer to front your band. Is it Lane or is it Chris Cornell?
Lane.
Chris.
All right. Here's some Nintendo. Double Dragon or Ninja Gaiden?
Ooh, Double Dragon.
Double Dragon.
All right. Here's some friends as in the TV show. Were Ross and Rachel on a break?
I'm not a Friends person, so actually I stay away. I'm against Friends. I don't watch.
Well, breaks.
Well, here's one for movies. Okay, Singles. I'm hoping you guys have seen Singles.
Oh yeah.
Or Empire Records.
Singles.
Has to be Singles.
Yeah.
Okay. One, it's Singles, but also number two, like we have to say it's Singles. We're Grunge Bible.
It's a great movie too, man. Like when you go back and watch it as an adult, like it's just,
it's perfect.
I bet. Yeah.
It hits different, man. All right, this might be a little bit too 90s for you, but Swatch watches or Shark watches?
Oh, I'm not sure what Shark watches are, so I'm gonna have to go with Swatch.
All right.
I'll tip in the unknown. I'll go with Shark.
Shark watches were these things that all my friends and I used to like set our timers like in class to like screw with our teachers, and they would go off like alarms.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Okay. Anything that messes. Yeah, that's what camp I'm in.
It was fun. Binaural or Riot Act?
Riot Act.
Binaural, easy. That's one of my favorite Pearl Jam records.
Yeah, me too. Magic Eye or Where's Waldo?
I'm going. Where's
Ooh,
Waldo?
Magic Eye.
Okay.
I Spies are like that.
Yeah. You know what? I can't do those. I've tried so many
I
times.
love
Like my
those.
eyes will not
I
do
used to
that.
love those.
It's so weird. All right. Say It Ain't
Oh,
So
yeah,
or
yeah,
Sweater
yeah.
Song?
Say It Ain't
Ooh.
So. We played it every show.
Yeah, it's got to be Say It Ain't So for me too.
All right, cool. All right, here's one. Can you guys recreate the sound of a dial-up modem?
Oh man. Oh man, I remember
I'm
that.
blanking.
I'm not too young to do this. It was like it. Oh shit. Yeah.
I'm blanking.
You don't. All I remember was I always used to get yelled at by my mom to get off the computer because she was expecting a phone call. Like
All
get
right.
off the internet.
All right, I won't put you on the spot with that one. How about this? This is the last one. Sometimes this is the hardest one, guys. Sometimes it's the easiest. If you could take one album, it does not have to be your favorite album of all time, but if you could take one album and erase it from your memory, just so you could go back now and experience it for the first time again, what record would
Okay.
that be?
And it doesn't have to be grunge. It could be
It
anything.
doesn't have to be grunge. No.
Wow, that's good. Chris, if you have one, go first. I'm
Yeah, I
thinking.
have one. I would, because this is the most recently, this album, I listened to it front to back for the first time. It completely blew me away, and I just want to go through that again. My Bloody Valentine's Loveless completely leveled me. And I would love to just erase that and have it level me once again.
All right.
Yeah, I would. I don't know. I think I'm gonna go Jar of Flies.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a little shorter, of an album EP, but I think that one was really really great the first time through. So I get to hear Nutshell for the first time again.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, you guys made it through the lightning round get down. Golf clap for you.
We did it.
Did all right.
You
Didn't
guys.
get the dial up modem, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So what did you guys think of Sap? Did you like Sap too?
Oh yeah, I like that. I mean, Right Turn for me is like probably the best hidden gem, I think, from the era that a lot of people have like forgotten to take a look at. Yeah, Sap's really really cool. Like I don't think you get Jar of Flies without Sap.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Totally.
absolutely. That's all I got.
Well,
I'm blanking right now. Lightning round wiped me.
Oh man, yeah, he needs a breather.
Go drink some warm milk and take a nap.
Exactly.
You guys, dude, thank you so much. This is so fun. We might have to do this again sometimes. It just went by too fast. We're gonna have to figure
I
out
would love
another
that.
topic
Yeah,
and we'll do it
have you on
again.
our podcast, there, Mark.
I would love to.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to chat jam bands and stuff at some point too, we can get deep in the weeds with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Have you
I
seen
will
Goose?
most. You know what? I haven't really paid a lot of attention to
Haven't.
them. I know of them. I'm
Goose
kind
is
of
loose.
the ilk of like, yeah, I know. I've heard good things, and I've heard a couple like on the Peloton. Like, there's one guy I do jam band rides with, and he'll play some of their stuff, and it's cool. I like it. But I don't know much other than that than I've heard. But I'm so like deep in so many of those bands. I'm like an old grouchy old jam band guy. I'm just like, I got my bands.
Yeah.
Which
no
that's
more
not
room
totally.
in the inn.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? That's not totally true though, because I am very, very open to listening to everything. I mean, I love everything from bluegrass to big band in between. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mhm.
I am always wide open for that. I mean, those guys, from what I understand, I mean, first of all, since the pandemic, those cats blew the F up. I mean, they
have.
took that time to figure
Oh,
out their lane and they stuck the landing.
did.
But
And they got good. I
yeah.
saw him play with Trey Anastasio's band. They opened with them, and I feel like I think they're doing something with I don't know. I feel like they got picked up by like the other jam bands, kind of welcomed them in, and they really started like morphing and getting all the fans of the other bands kind of like got put onto them and stuff. So yeah, they really are kind of doing well.
Yeah, they're capitalizing for sure on like what they've got going on right now, keeping the train rolling, man.
And I understand what you're saying about the like, you have your camp that you're in, and I think the Goose will kind of like I felt like I was there when it's not when it started, but like I was early enough, they're young enough, like I don't have to catch up on the unlimited Grateful Dead stuff that I have to
Right.
listen to as much. Like, I still listen to it, but it's such a tall task. So I think I feel a little more comfortable getting into the Goose.
Yeah, they're great players too, man. Like just from
Mhm.
listening to them, like they're all really
Yeah.
talented cats. So it's good. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I'm always open to it. But
Oh, yeah.
man, you guys, I really super appreciate your time and hanging out. And tell everybody where they can find every single thing that you guys do.
Absolutely. So we are on Instagram at grunge_Bible. We have a podcast that we've had for the last 102 weeks consecutively. Just search for the Grunge Bible podcast. We also have a less used Facebook page, the Grunge Bible. We're on TikTok as well, although we don't really use it that much. Same thing with Twitter. But that podcast and that Instagram, they're our bread and butter, so they're easy to find. Just search for Grunge Bible, and you can find us, all of our memes, all of our inside jokes, and all of our good content sandwiched in between all that.
And wood. Yeah.
And wood. A whole lot of wood. We're chopping down forests. We got so much wood.
Oh man, it's so great. Yeah, guys, make sure you go, check them out on Instagram and check out their podcast. It's great. And if you love this music, they really take the time to massage everything out of it that they possibly can. And it's super fun to listen to, super fun to watch. And the Instagram account is just a joy. Like I was saying earlier, it's nice to, in the middle of my workday, get my grunge fix and get some laughter and some like, good hearty kind of feelings too, man. All the feels come out when I see some of those old clips. So I super appreciate what you
Absolutely.
guys are doing, keeping the thing alive, man. Really.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's exactly what we want to do. So we're really, really happy to hear that it's doing that for you.
Yeah, man. Well, everybody, you guys hang out real quick, but everybody else, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.
Rock and roll, everybody.